Okay, we're back. We're live. We're Think Tech Talks here on a given Friday with Asia in Review. This Friday, we're going to talk about Mongolia, the rule of law in Mongolia, with Ganzorig Gombosuren.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, who is a remarkable individual, and it's great to have him here. He is right now the Assistant Prosecutor General of the country of Mongolia, and he was the Assistant Justice on the Supreme Court of the country of Mongolia. We also have Eric Bayar Batanjov. Did I get that right?
Erkan Bayar.
Erkan Bayar.
Yep. That's correct.
Batarjov.
Yep.
Yeah. And his title is?
Prosecutor.
Also prosecutor from Mongolia. And of course, the fellow who set it up, Judge Shackley Raffetto, the Chief Judge of Maui, now retired.
Right.
And thank you very much, Shackley, for setting this up.
My pleasure.
So, we love to cover Mongolia. We love to cover Asia in general. We love to cover everywhere, but Mongolia is a special place because we know Al Laporte, who used to be the American ambassador, retired now, American ambassador of the State Department to Mongolia for a long time, who truly loves Mongolia. And I understand you know him, so that's a great thing. It's all connected.
He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, great.
He was the ambassador when I first went to Mongolia. Actually, I met him then.
He's an elegant man, and he comes here at this table from time to time, and it comes to Hawaii often. So
Next time you see him, say hi for
Yes.
me.
absolutely will. It's all connected.
Yeah. It's a small world.
Small world.
Yeah.
So, Ganzorig, can you give us a handle on exactly who's here? Because in our gallery there must be another 5, 6 people here from Mongolia. Can you tell us the nature of the trip and the group?
Yep. First of all, thank you. It was great to be with you.
The
And
same.
of course, thank you, Judge, setting up everything. We have a group of prosecutors in here. We 2 prosecutors from capital city office, Mr. Erkan Bayar, who is sitting next to me, and also Prosecutor Erkan Bayar, and then 2 chief prosecutors from Kob and Zakhan province, so Mr. Gombosuren and Gombosuren. And then we have some other prosecutors from provincial areas, Miss Dashchirma and Miss Gerilma and Mr. Tsering Odum, so all prosecutors. Except me, they are all prosecutors. I was the judge for many years, 16 years I was judge, and 8 years I served at the Supreme Court of Mongolia.
So, if there were any crimes, any need for prosecution in Mongolia now, what would happen with all the prosecutors being here in Hawaii?
We have 460.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
some of them in there took care of the other issues. Well, you asked about the nature of this trip, and I would say that it's one of the best opportunity for us to learn from prosecutors in Hawaii what the prosecutors do in a democratic society and what is the role of prosecutors in a judicial system of Hawaii. So we're learning and sharing their experiences.
So, Shackley, can you tell us how the trip got started and how it's gone? I guess you're 2 days away from the end of the trip now.
Yes, that's correct.
So tell us how it got organized and what has happened during the trip.
Sure. I had the opportunity to go to Mongolia back around 1996. That's when I met the ambassador as well as met Justice Ganzorig. And later, when I started a international court observer program at my court in Maui, Justice Ganzorig was my first court observer. So he came and he observed our justice system. And in fact, we did what's called a judicial ride-along, and he wore a black robe and he sat right next to me on the bench, and we sat there for an entire jury trial.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So that he would have the opportunity to see how our citizens participate in our justice system,
Yeah.
and then every day things that go on in our court. And we may remain good friends, for forever after that with him and his family. In fact, his daughters worked in my chambers a couple of summers ago.
Oh, that's great.
And met her husband and her now husband in Maui. And may eventually
That's
actually
great,
settle
too.
here in Hawaii.
This is all perfect.
It's a big family. And then recently, after Justice Ganzorig had returned to Mongolia and served as the attorney for the president and now in his present position, he contacted me and asked if I would help in arranging for a training program for prosecutors to come to Hawaii. And I was delighted to do that, so I rushed around and I contacted our prosecutor in Maui, J.D. Kim, and Chief Justice Rechtenwald and Attorney General Louis, and everyone has been super supportive. So we put together a program and we spent, 5 days, I think, in Maui. We received lectures from the prosecutor's office and toured the office, and then spent several days in Judge Cardoza's courtroom, Judge Bisson's courtroom, watching the prosecutors in action, and then speaking with them as we went along, with answering questions that the prosecutors had and so on. So it's a very enriched experience. And the last thing we did before we came here was to talk to the Attorney General. Attorney General Louis and Chris Young is on his staff answered a lot of questions about white-collar crimes and so on, and the function of the Attorney General. And then Justice Ganzorig spoke with the Attorney General about working together in the future and assisting the Mongolian development of their prosecutorial system on an ongoing basis. So it's a very rich and I think successful program. And when we leave here, we're going to go over to the Supreme Court and meet the Chief Justice.
Ooh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's all about relationships, isn't it?
Absolutely. It sure is.
They don't use the word guanxi.
What is that?
Chinese means relationships, long-term,
okay, I see.
long-term friendships always lead to good things.
Good.
So now, Erkam Bayer Batar Jav doesn't speak a real good English, I guess. And so we need translation. Okay, can you help us?
Yes, I would be happy to do so.
Okay, can you ask him how the trip has been for him and his colleagues, and what he's gotten out of the trip to Hawaii this time?
Good.
Ask him to introduce himself too.
Хэлээд өөрийгөө танилцуулна гэж байна.
За, намайг Эрхэн Баяр гэдэг. Монгол Улсын нийслэл Улаанбаатарт ийм прокурорын газарт прокурор ажилладаг.
Yeah, my name is Erkan Bayer and I'm a prosecutor at the Capital City Prosecution Department.
Okay.
Тэгээ ингэж асууж байна л да. Юу сургуультай хэр зэрэг явагдав, юу сурав, сэтгэл ямар байна уу?
За, юуны өмнө биднийг өөрийн сайхан орондоо урьдсан шүүгч Shackley Raffettod талархснаа группийнхаа нэрээс илэрхийлье.
First of all, I would like to say thank you to Judge Raffetto for inviting us to Hawaii and setting up all this wonderful program.
My pleasure.
Бидэнд зориулсан шүүгч Raffettoгийн хөтөлбөр ихээхэн үр дүнтэй ийм өгөөжтэй ийм хөтөлбөр боллоо. Бид их зүйлийг үзэж харж сурлаа.
It was very helpful program, and Judge Raffetto put very good program, and we learned lots of things from the others.
Манай монголчуудад нэг сайхан үг байдаг. 1000 сонсохоор нэг удаа үзэж. Яг бид бол Америкийн хэрэгцээ тогтолцоог бол үзэж харж сурлаа.
Yeah, there is a good saying in Mongolian. It's better to see once than hear 1,000 times. So we watched the trash and met
Sure.
the people. It was very good, much better.
За, манай Монгол Улсын хувьд бол их газрын буюу Орон Германы хэрэгцээ тогтолцоотой улс орно. За, Америк бол одоо common law буюу юм жишг хэрэгцээ тогтолцоотой орн байгаа. Гэхдээ яг өнөө цаг үед Монгол улсад шүүгэн шинтгэл хийгдэж бидээс яг таны шиг юм чиг хандлага руу явж байгаа. Яг энэ цаг үед бид ирсэндээ бас их баяртай байна.
I would say that we are happy because we're doing great reform in Mongolia, even though Mongolia has different so-called continental legal system, which is slightly different than the U.S. common law system. However, we are happy to watch and learn things from the common law system as well.
Well, can we get a handle on what kind of a country Mongolia is, how big it is, its history, if you will, its relationships, all this in 1 minute, yeah.
Okay.
And especially what it means to be a lawyer in Mongolia, what it means to be a prosecutor, what it means to be the assistant prosecutor general. I think it sounds like attorney general, perhaps, of the country. What's the legal foundation before we get to adopting a rule of law notion? What is it like legally in Mongolia?
But before you start, can you tell us what the correct pronunciation of Ulaanbaatar, the actual way that you say the name of the capital city in Mongolia?
Well, it's very simple. Ulaanbaatar. Ulaanbaatar.
Ulaanbaatar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you asked lots of questions.
Sorry.
And asked me to put answer in 1 minute. So it's
We'll take time. It's okay.
quite challenging. Well, first of all, I would like to say that Mongolia is a country in Asia, in Central Asia, sandwiched between Russia and China. Its territory is huge, big country. However, the population is small. It's only about 3 million people. Well,
Now, we're talking about Inner Mongolia or Outer Mongolia or both Mongolias. And where is the Gobi Desert?
Mongolia is an independent country.
Okay.
So, if you put this way, the Inner Mongolia is part of China.
Okay.
So, Mongolia is an independent country.
Okay.
Well, Gobi Desert area on the south part of Mongolia. Once you come to Mongolia, as you promised, you can travel there and see where is Gobi Desert area.
Okay.
Next, if I describe about whole Office of Prosecutor General, it would be a long story.
Okay.
But I will try to say a few things
Okay.
short. The Office of Prosecutor General in Mongolia, first of all, it's separate from the Department of Justice in Mongolia. Department of Justice in Mongolia called Ministry of Justice. So these are two different institutions, two different departments. The prosecutors, the Attorney General and Assistant Prosecutor General, like me, in charge for the mostly in charge for the overseeing the investigation and prosecuting cases in the courts and overseeing the enforcement of the jail sentencing, overseeing prison institution. If I say a few things about current situation, that is that the Mongolia and particularly the judicial institutions are going through rapid judicial reform. So we're trying very hard to change the law and rules and then educate our lawyers.
Why?
And
Why are you in a period of judicial reform?
because we want to promote human rights and provide more freedom and rights for people of Mongolia, so that Mongolian people can exercise their constitutional rights, exercise their civil rights. So it's important that the prosecutors and judges well educated of human rights and justice, as well as the public must be educated well of their rights, constitutional rights. only then we can support and we can promote human rights.
Forgive me, but what's the form of government in Mongolia in general?
According to the constitution, it's a parliamentary republic.
Okay.
Yeah. However, we have different branches of government in charge for different issues. Still, we tried very hard to keep check and balance. We have president, constitutional court, government, the legislature, parliament, and the judiciary. So, executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial branch.
Checks and balances.
That's correct.
Good.
But it's written in the constitution. Still, we have to work very hard to have been implemented in day-to-day life of Mongolian people.
Okay. So I'd like to take a break, but is there anything that comes to mind, Judge Raffetto, that you want to cover right now?
I just wanted to ask, what is the date that the current constitution was adopted in Mongolia?
It was adopted in 1992.
So at
January.
the end of the fall of the Soviet Union.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Mongolia was never an official part of the Soviet Union, right? But it was dominated by the Russians, basically, and the Russian
Judge, you
Soviets.
are quite right. Yeah, it hasn't been never part of Russia, but heavily influenced by Russians and communists.
So the legal system during that period was basically dominated by the Russian communist type of system.
Mostly the legal structure borrowed from Germany through the Russia. So the Russian and German system based civil law system. So
Is that pre-fall of the Soviet Union? Only after the Soviet Union fell, or before?
during the Soviet period, Mongolia was a civil law country and heavily influenced by the communist ideology.
Did you have a constitutional court during the Soviet period?
Nope.
That was after. Because that came after
Constitution-
World War II. Yeah.
No, the Constitutional Court actually they established in after the new constitution adopted in after the 1992.
I see.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, Mongolians are Asian. Do you come from China? I mean, originally, is that the way people swept across the Mongolian area?
I think it's the other way around.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you. Okay. And is Buddhism a big thing in Mongolia?
Yeah, I think more than 90% of the people in Mongolia worship Buddhism.
But it's a Mongolian branch of Buddhism. It's a special Buddhism just for Mongolia.
Yeah, it's originated from Tibet.
Okay. All right.
But because of the freedom of religion, there are many Christian and Mormons and Muslims, many other Catholics, many other different people worship different religions.
And the population of Mongolia?
It's very small, 3 million.
Oh, you
or
said,
3 million.
yeah. Okay. That's small.
See, during the communist period, the religion was suppressed, and many of the lamas, because of the Tibetan system, lamas were killed. A lot of the monasteries were destroyed. But those have come back spectacularly.
That's true.
They've rebuilt
That's true.
it. Beautiful.
In 1930s, there had been terrible repression, and many lamas and many people who had some kind of relationship with lamas had been executed without any courts.
And Buddhism is strong now. The Buddhism has always continued.
Yeah, now it's come back, and everybody had right to worship, and there is freedom of religion. So it's good for people.
Okay. This is really great to find out, we don't know enough about Mongolia.
You know, one story I heard, Judge, tell me if this is correct. that the Chinese actually introduced Buddhism into Mongolia, and their reasoning was that if they could introduce Buddhism, they could reduce the fierce warrior ethic that had previously existed amongst the Mongolians, all the way back to Genghis Khan. Is that true story?
No, I think that was the history, introduction of history by ideological basis, so that to diminish the role of religion. The religious freedom has been in place, had been in Mongolia in place for a long period of time of Genghis Khan, but Tibetan Buddhism had been introduced long ago.
I see.
Not associated with any Russians or any
The Chinese. I
Yeah.
see.
So is it fair to say there are not many fierce warriors in Mongolia now?
Why not? I would say the national spirits high now, and even though they wouldn't be the first warriors like in time of Genghis Khan, still many Mongolians doing fine on the stage of the reform towards democracy and towards human rights, the freedom.
I do want to take a break, but I have one more question, if you don't mind, that seems to fit in this part of the discussion, and that is 460 prosecutors. What kinds of crimes do you find in Mongolia?
Well, let me ask this young man. He can tell
Please,
much better than me.
please.
Ямар төрлийн гэмтрийг их гарч байна вэ? Ямар төрлийн хэрэгүүдийг одоо ялах ажиллагаа явуулж байна вэ Монголд?
Ер нь бол хулгай хэрэг их бий.
Lots of death
Танхаа хэрэг бий.
Debt.
and
Өстөө юм бахад гэмтэл очруулсан.
and then the lots of crimes of disorderly behavior, crimes against the people and caused injuries.
Гэтэ үлдэгч хэрэгүүд маань орон нутаг хот гэдгээс шалтгаалаад өөр төрлийн хэрэгүүд
Well,
үлдэгч.
also I would say that the type of crimes are different in a capital city, in a provincial area.
За сүүлийн жилүүд бол арилга албан тушаалын хэрэг үндэстэн замсан зохион байгуулалттай тухайлбал мөнгө бах зэргийн төвд үлдэгдэх болсон.
Lately, there are on the rise crimes like corruption, money laundering, and organized crimes.
Is there the death penalty in Mongolia?
Well, we abolished the penalty.
Ah.
So we joined to international convention and second optional protocol. So we abolished death sentence, which was very good.
Sounds like a great idea to me, don't you think, Judge Raffetto?
Yes.
Anyway, we have here Asia in review. We're talking about the rule of law in Mongolia with Ganzorig, Gombosuren,
Yes. Thank you, sir.
and Erkem Bayar Batar.
Ciao.
We're going to take a short break. We're going to switch out and have another member of the delegation at the table. Thank you so much. We'll be right back after this short
Thank you,
break.
sir.
Thank you.
Aloha. I'm Nicole Horry with the Think Tech Commentary. The PUC has established an investigative docket to determine the advisability of an undersea cable connecting the Oahu and Maui electrical grids. It has scheduled public meetings on both Oahu and Maui to invite comments on the proposal. The PUC is investigating whether a transmission cable between the two islands is in the public interest and whether the benefits to ratepayers would exceed the costs of the cable, which DBET estimates would be $700 million. The PUC also wants to know about development risks and how they would be mitigated. With the remarkable increase in PV in the islands and the availability of new grid technologies, it may be possible for each island to generate renewables that meet its own demand and to have separate renewable grids for each island instead. At the same time, an island that depends heavily on a source of renewables, such as PV, may be vulnerable to local changes in the weather or an unanticipated problem with that single method of energy generation. The ultimate question for the PUC, then, is not simply whether an undersea cable is good for Hawaii, but how we can achieve layered redundancy for a resilient statewide system. ThinkTech believes that a great state needs ample power distribution, and that the proper approach is to start with this undersea cable, not only to bring the separate island grids and the state together, but as part of a strategy to achieve the security and safety of redundant systems. I'm Nicole Horry with this ThinkTech commentary. Mahalo.
Well, we're back, we're live, we're at Think Tech Talks. We're doing Asia in Review today on Friday in the 12 to 1 block. And we're talking about the rule of law in Mongolia. And we have Judge and Prosecutor, Chief Prosecutor General Ganzorig Gombosuren. We have Judge Shackley Raffetto, formerly the Chief Judge of the County of Maui. And now we have had Erkayim Bayer Batarjav. And now we also have Gombosuren Namuku.
Yep.
Okay,
That's good.
I hope I got
Thank you,
that
sir.
reasonably right. Welcome. Judge, can you introduce Gombosuren and tell us, ask him to tell us what he does and so forth?
За тэгээд өөрийгөө танилцуулна уу, тэгээд Монголд та ямар ажил эрхэлдэг вэ? Тэрийгээ товчхон хэлнэ гэж товчхон.
За миний нэр Гомбосурен. За би Монгол Улсын Завхан аймгийн прокурорын газарт аймгийн прокурор хийдэг.
My name is Gombosuren, and I'm a senior prosecutor in Zakpang province of Mongolia, on the west part of Mongolia.
So if there are 3 million people in Mongolia, how many people are in this west area of Mongolia?
Of this province?
Yeah.
Юу 3 сая хүнтэй юм байна. Тэгээд танаа аймаг хичнээн хүнтэй гэдэг вэ? Хүн ам гэдэг вэ?
За юуны өмнө хаваачуудаа энэ өдрийн мэндийг хүргье.
First of all, I like to say hello to people of Hawaii.
За мөн энд одоо биднийг өрсөн шүүгч Raffetto одоо за мөн танай студийн хамт олонд энэ өдрийн мэндийг хүргье.
And also greetings to you, Judge Raffetto, and greetings to you and your staff.
Oh, thank you, Judge.
За манай аймаг нийт 72,000 хүн амтай. За 24 сумтай.
The 72,000 people in Zakpang Аймаг, and 24 small territorial units. It's called Som.
Is that a village or?
That's kind of village.
Okay. And what kinds of well, first let me ask, how many women prosecutors and how many men prosecutors in the province?
Well, as I said, we have about 460 prosecutors, and more than 60% of all prosecutors are ladies, women, which is good.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's great.
It's very good.
So what kind of crimes or what kind of actions are you busy?
Тэр танад ямар гэмтрэг гардаг вэ? Ер нь их ажил ихтэй байдгүй.
За манайх жилд нэг 1000-аас 1400 гомдол мэдээлэл хүлээж авдаг.
In a year, we would receive some 1,400 complaints of crime.
За энэ дотор бол эрүүл мэндийн эсрэг чиглэсэн гэмтрэг, за мал хулгайлах гэмтрэг, за танхаан гэмтрэгүүд дэлгэрэг эзэлдэг.
Lots of personal injury cases and debts.
Theft.
Debt, yeah.
And where did Gombosuren go to law school?
Та хаана хуулийн сургуульд төгссөн бэ?
Би Монгол цагдаагийн академи.
I originally, firstly, I graduated from the police school. Хуулийн сургуульд төгссөн юм. Тэгээ хаана төгссөн юм?
Цагдаагийн академи их зүйн төлөвсөн.
Тэр нь хуулийн
Тийм хуулийн сургууль тийм.
At the time, it considered like law school. even though his status has been changed. But at the time when he graduated, he was considered one of the law schools in Mongolia.
You know, Shackley, it sounds like there's a certain blend of civil and criminal happening, that the prosecutors are handling matters that would be considered civil in this country.
Well, you're saying that because you mentioned personal injury, and that's
Yeah,
a good
and-
question. Does the prosecutor become involved? Oh, you're
No.
talking, it would be an assault, I guess.
Yeah, so
I see.
yeah, that's assault case,
Okay.
not the civil cases.
So when we talk about prosecutors, we're talking about crimes,
Right.
and the civil matters are handled by lawyers. I mean, who are not prosecutors.
Well, let me say that the Office of Prosecutor General is in charge for, as I said, for criminal matters, the overseeing the investigation and prosecuting the cases. However, I must say that the Office of Prosecutor General also had authority to bring civil lawsuits against the people who did wrongdoing on civil.
Well, so are there also civil lawyers who are not prosecutors who go to court?
Even in
As
my-
in this
my
country?
office.
Yeah.
Well, in my office, all the people called prosecutors.
Yeah.
However, these people also can go to court to represent the state or file a civil lawsuit
On behalf of the state.
On behalf of the state, yeah, you're correct.
So are there lawyers now that represent the individual defendants who are charged with crimes, who are sued for a civil matter?
That's correct. Yeah, everybody has right to have legal aid. So he or she can hire a lawyer, or they can appear before the court, before the judge by themselves.
Okay.
What's in English? Process.
Per se, yes.
Yeah.
So let me shift gears for a minute and ask you about the whole examination of rule of law. So before the rule of law, before this became of interest, what was the system about precedent? And now, what are you doing to incorporate the notion of rule of law in the Mongolian system?
Well, that is a good question. I would say that before 1992, there was a pure legal system purely dictated by communist ideology. So the whole judicial structure, the legal structure, was designed to protect so-called state interest. Now we're gradually shifting, the policy is changing, and the constitution also states that the state institutions must protect rights of people. Accordingly, the now policy is that we not only prosecute bad guys, also we have to have room to protect individual rights, victims' rights, as well as rights of the defendants. So on all stages of the investigation, prosecution, and during the trial hearing, we must make sure that you make sure that we protect rights of people.
So
that's the major shift of policy.
Are you now in a national process to change things to include the rule of law?
That's quite right. We have been doing democratic changes in the efforts continue with the efforts to building of democracy continue for 20 years. But of course, it's not enough. So we have ongoing judicial reform now, which was initiated a few years ago by sitting president of Uzbek Dorj. So this is an ongoing process. We're trying to introduce new policy in criminal justice area and renew the major law and rules according to the Constitution, and so that these laws protect rights, individual rights of people in the criminal justice system.
So Shackley, what role have you played in bringing this possibility to Mongolia, and how does this trip play with that possibility?
Well, the trip is actually designed just to expose them to see how defendants are represented, to hear from our lawyers that the role of the prosecuting attorney, for instance, is to do justice, whereas the role of the defense lawyer is to zealously defend their client, to talk about what a Miranda warning is and how that fits into our system, so that they can actually see that. In fact, we were in Judge Cardozo's courtroom the other day, and there was a defendant who was represented by a lawyer who insisted on talking about something in his case, and Judge Cardozo stopped him and warned him that he had a right to remain silent and that anything he might say would be used against him. So that was a great example of the protection of human rights by a major player in the system, the trial judge. And so to see those things in action, as opposed to just, as the other gentleman said, hear about it, and someone who comes and lectures about it, is really significant because it's an unforgettable experience.
Yeah.
My personal view is that the gentleman who came on this trip will never forget this experience, and what they learn and what they observe will influence their thinking and their thought process about how they feel about what kind of reforms would be appropriate in their country.
It's profound.
So,
It's a profound cultural
I
change.
think it helps things to manifest change and to share ideas. It's a very dynamic process.
It's interesting to watch my prosecutors, how they act, what kind of questions they have. Today we had meeting with the Attorney General of Hawaii, Mr. David Liu, and during this meeting, one of our prosecutors asked about whether the defendant and defense lawyer would have right to access to file prosecutor's case. And the prosecutors responded that from the very beginning, the defendant and defense lawyer would have access to entire file. So that's not the case in Mongolia. So that was interesting for us, for prosecutors, and that was really new discovery for Mongolian prosecutors. That is one of the things we're looking into the U.S. system, common law system. That is discovery rule, right, Judge?
Yes, and they see, for instance, that by doing that, there are no surprises when it comes time to trial, and it's much easier to resolve cases because there's no ambush effort or surprise, trying to trick the other side. Everything's above board in a criminal case, and that's the way it ought to be.
Yeah, the important thing is not to look at the American movies and get it, It's better to go to the courtroom.
That's true. But, sir, on the movie, many of prosecutors have seen that when somebody arrested, the policeman is reading something.
Mm-hmm.
So few days ago they told me that on the TV, on the movie, they reading something. Now we understand what was that. That was Miranda.
That's right.
So we will try to make sure that the Mongolian policemen, when arrested somebody, they must read their rights, constitutional rights.
Well, it sounds like, adopting the rule of law and reforming the criminal justice system are part of the same initiative. I mean, it's human rights. It's getting a better handle on actually how to, conduct courtroom procedures and relationships with defense and prosecutors and so forth. But it's the same thing, isn't it? I mean, you're working on both of them at the same time. Adopting the rule of law, reforming the criminal justice system.
That's correct. You know, as I mentioned earlier, also it was very interesting today. Listen to the Attorney General. He was saying that well, you guys must first pass good legislation, good law, and then you start working to implement. So that is what we're doing now. That is the part what we're doing now. We're trying to pass new penal code and new criminal procedure code. So into this new legislation, new laws and rules, we will put the details so that we can, that would be guaranteed to protect rights. And then once we pass good law, and then the prosecutors, judges and lawyers can follow these laws, and by doing this they would guarantee rights of people and protect rights and freedoms of Mongolian people.
Well, Judge, can you ask Gombosuren Naumku how he feels about the reforms, how he feels about incorporating the rule of law and reforming the criminal justice system in his province, in his practice, in his office?
Танаас асуулт асууя гэж. Шүүхийн шинтгэл, тэр эрүүгийн эрх зүйн шинтгэл таны ажил дээр танай аймагт яаж явж байна вэ гэж.
За энэ манай Монгол улс 1992 онд анх эхэлж одоо ажил үндсэн хуультай болсон. За энэ цагаас хойш жилд одоо хуулинд өөрчлөлт орж, эрүүг хуулинд өөрчлөлт орж, хүний эрхийг айлуулах дээдсэн ийм үйл хэрэгжиж эхэлж байгаа.
In 1992 we had new constitution. According to the new constitution, there were some amendments to criminal code and criminal procedure code. It basically purported to protect rights of people. Ажил дээр ямар шинтгэл хийж байна гэж асуусан. Танай провинц.
Ажил дээр бол энэ хуулийг шинжилгээн батлагдсан хуулийг бол одоо хэрэгжүүлж ажиллаж байгаа. Энэ л үр дүнтэй болж байгаа.
And we work hard at my office to implement enforce these laws. And in my view, we're doing pretty good job.
And is this good for Mongolia?
За энэ одоо монголчууд сайн болж байна уу гэж хэрэгтэй байна уу?
Окей. Хэрэгтэй болж байна. Хэрэгтэй болж байна. Бид хүн энд бас хаваад ирээд энэ хаваа хуулийн байгууллагын тогтолцоотой танилцаад, за прокурор шүүхийн байгууллагын тэр үйл ажиллагаатай танилцаж маш их юм одоо мэдэж сурч авч байгаа. Энийг одоо хэрэгжүүлж Монголд ажиллах хэрэгжүүлж ажиллана.
Yes, we learn a lot during this trip to Hawaii, Maui, and I hope that we can implement all these new ideas in my day-to-day work.
Does he have any feedback about how the people in his province, not the prosecutors, but the people feel about these changes? Do they know, do they realize things are changing, and do they like the changes?
Захунчууд танай нутгийн хүмүүс энэ шүүхийн шинтгэлийг хэр зэрэг хүлээж авч байна уу? Хэр зэрэг мэдэрч байна уу? Тэр хүмүүст тэр шүүхийн шинтгэл чинь тэр хүмүүст хүрч байна уу?
За энэ улсын хурлаас хууль бол батлагдаж гарч байгаа. За энийг бол хэрэгжүүлж сурталчлах одоо үүрэг нь бол прокурорын байгууллагад байж байгаа. Тийм учраас энийг одоо жилд 4-5 удаа тэр сумуудаараа явж ард иргэдтэйгээ уулзаж энэ хуулийг бол сурталчилж ажиллаж байгаа. Ингэснээр бол үр дүнд хүрч байгаа. Гэмтрэг буурч байгаа.
The procedure is that the legislature would pass the law in relation to judicial reform, and then we try to educate public about these new developments, new law and rules, and we oftentimes go to villages and educate public about the new rules and laws, and I think it has been good and have some achievements because I see the crime decreasing. So
very
that
good.
must be results of our work.
Well, one overarching question, we only have a minute or two left, but one overarching question I would like to ask you is this. I mean, you've talked about the history of Mongolia, talked about the influences, talked about the current system of government and the attempt at reforming. How is this? I mean, you are in a point of history, it seems to me, Ganzorig. Things are changing. Whenever they're changing this way, the whole country is changing. How is the country changing? What does it look like going forward for Mongolia, given these profound changes in the law?
Well, I would say in a very short period of time, 20 years for history is nothing. Very short period of time. However, I think Mongolia is doing very well during this 20 years period. We have been doing simultaneous reforms in economic reform and then political reform. So in terms of economic reform, it's been very good, and overall the life of ordinary people in Mongolia now much better than in a communist period of time.
Should we come to Ulaanbaatar? Batur. Should we come? Should we visit?
You are very welcome, Jay. And you can have fine hotels, and you can have a great meal, many different restaurants, and I'm sure you would enjoy. But also I want to say that in terms of rights of people, human rights, we did great achievements, great progress.
Yeah.
So that was very, very important in my view.
Shackley, let me ask you the last question, if I may. So how has the trip been for you? How much have you learned about Mongolia from the Mongolian delegation that you've taken around? And what does it mean for you in the future? Are you going to do a Jessup moot court program in Mongolia too?
Well, I'm going to visit in August, if I'm planning to, and the judges invited me to come to help teach in they have a new prosecutors institute for the very purpose of training prosecutors, and he's invited me to come, and I'm definitely going to do that. Well, it was great to meet the prosecutors and hear about how, all this new thinking that's going on in Mongolia. I haven't been there for a long time, although I have been there 4 times. But this is a country where change is incredibly fast. And given where they started from, where they've come already is pretty amazing. And, if there's a country that needs our assistance and support, it's Mongolia, in my opinion. They're trying to do the right thing, and we ought to be supporting it as much as we can.
And Hawaii can do that.
That's right. It's another one of those examples of being the gateway to Asia.
Yeah, citizen diplomacy.
Absolutely.
That's Judge Shackley Raffetto, retired Chief Judge of the Second Circuit in Maui, and Judge Ganzorig Gombosuren, who is now the Assistant Prosecutor General of the country of Mongolia. We had earlier comments from Erkhem Bayer Batoyorjev, and now we have George Surin. I'm going to take my time and do this right. George Surin.
Bravo.
Namaku. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you,
for
sir.
coming
Thank
on
you.
Think Tank.
Thank you, Jack.
This is Asia in Review, Think Tech Talks. We're talking about the rule of Mongolia. We'll be right back in a moment with more about likable science here on Friday. Aloha.